Imagine walking through a 12th century Spanish bazaar filled with North African scholars, traders, and artists. This was Al-Andalus, the Muslim-ruled Iberian realm for nearly 800 years, 711 to 1492. Its rulers were the Moors, mostly Berber and Arab peoples from North Africa. In 711 AD, a Berber general, Tariq ibn Ziyad, crossed the Strait of Gibraltar and defeated the Visigothic king at Guadalete, launching Muslim rule in Spain. Over the next decades, Umayyad leaders like Abd al-Rahman I consolidated power, creating the Caliphate of Córdoba. The Moors would govern much of Spain and Portugal for centuries. In that time, they introduced ideas and innovations that still shape Europe today, a history surprisingly little taught in many U.S. textbooks. Who were the Moors?
The term Moors lumps together a diverse group of Muslim peoples from North Africa. In medieval Europe, it referred to both Arabs and Berbers. Portuguese chronicles even distinguished white Moors, Arab Turkish Muslims, and black Moors, sub-Saharan Africans. Indeed, the invading army of 711 included many Berbers from modern Morocco, Algeria, and some black Africans. As Moorish Spain evolved, it remained multicultural. Muslims ruled over a population of Christian Visigoths, Jews, and converts, and they sometimes employed sub-Saharan slaves in various roles. Muslims, Christians, and Jews often coexisted under Moorish law. As one scholar notes, Al-Andalus, quote, combined the best of what Muslim, Jewish, and Christian cultures had to offer, end quote. Tolerance in Al-Andalus was relative. Non-Muslims paid a special tax, but generally could worship and practice their traditions.
The rapid Moorish conquest transformed Spain's destiny. In 711, Tariq's force of a few thousand routed the Visigoths in a single battle. Within years, most of the peninsula came under the new emirate of Córdoba. By 781, Abd al-Rahman I had restored stability and nearly unified Iberia under Muslim rule. Córdoba grew into a great capital. Its population may have rivaled Paris or Baghdad. In 929, the Umayyad ruler Abd al-Rahman III even proclaimed himself caliph, signaling Córdoba's independence from Baghdad. He built a palatial city and lavish court, and Córdoba entered a spectacular economic boom of trade, agriculture, and urban growth. For a time, Muslims held most of Spain. Later dynasties, Almoravids, Almohads, and finally the Nasrid dynasty in Granada, kept Al-Andalus alive until 1492, when the Catholic monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella conquered the last emirate.
Under the Moors, Al-Andalus entered a golden age of learning and culture. Córdoba alone built an immense library. One contemporary account claims its catalog ran 44 volumes, and its caliph, Al-Hakam II, collected hundreds of thousands of books. In fact, 10th century Moorish Spain boasted dozens of libraries and dozens of schools, madrasas, while at that time, Christian Europe had almost none. Over 70 libraries existed in Muslim Spain, many attached to mosques or universities. These libraries preserved and expanded the knowledge of ancient Greece, Rome, India, and beyond. Under Moorish patronage, scholars translated Greek and Latin works into Arabic.
The Moors' achievements spanned many fields. In science and medicine, Moor scholars pioneered instruments and techniques. They perfected the astrolabe for navigating by the stars. They built on algebra and trigonometry, ultimately stemming from earlier Middle Eastern mathematicians, to advance astronomy. In medicine, famous physicians like Al-Zarawi, Latin Albucasis, d. 1013, wrote encyclopedias of surgery and treatments that became standard references in Europe. Córdoba even had a renowned medical school and public hospitals before many European cities did. Education was highly valued. Schools were common, and literacy among Mozarabs, Iberian Christians under Muslim rule, and Muslims was relatively high. We are told Córdoba had 17 major universities by 1000 AD, at a time when Europe had only 2. In fact, a visitor noted that 8th century Moorish Spain was among the most admired lands of its time. As historian Maria Rosa Menocal writes, instead of a dark ages, Al-Andalus was a culture where literature, science, and tolerance flourished for 500 years.
Architecture and engineering also flourished. Moorish architects introduced the horseshoe arch, intricate geometric tilework, and elaborate stucco decoration that mark Islamic art. They built grand palaces, mosques, and public works. In Córdoba, the Great Mosque, now the cathedral, was expanded to cover a vast area, its carpet of 1,000 marble columns and red and white arches dazzling visitors. The Alhambra Palace in Granada, with its red walls and ornate courtyards, remains one of the world's architectural masterpieces. Moorish engineers built irrigation canals and dams that transformed arid land into gardens and orchards. Caliph al-Hakam II used stable rule to extend irrigation works and widen Córdoba's streets. Even street lighting was introduced. Chroniclers say Córdoba had lit oil lamps along major roads at night centuries before Europe did.
Surviving monuments like Córdoba's Mezquita Cathedral, shown here with its Roman bridge, highlight this legacy. This building began as an 8th century mosque and was later converted to a church. Along with the Alhambra and Giralda, it is now UNESCO listed. Even European Gothic cathedrals were influenced by Moorish models. Culture and everyday life were transformed too. The music of Al-Andalus blended Arab, African, and Spanish traditions. One iconic figure was Ziryab, a 9th century musician and polymath who arrived from Baghdad. He set fashions at the Córdoba court: music, haircuts, clothing, and even changed cuisine. He introduced new fruits, like asparagus, and insisted on 3-course meals: soup, main, dessert. Moorish Spain gave Europe many daily comforts: spinning wheels for textiles, mechanical clocks, public baths, and advanced hospitals. It also brought papermaking, a Chinese technology, and the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, digits 0 to 9, that replaced Roman numerals.
Even the Spanish language still bears a Moorish imprint. Many common words come from Arabic, especially those beginning with al, the Arabic the. For example, almohada, pillow, azúcar, sugar, almendra, almond, and algodón, cotton, all come from Arabic. Over 4,000 Spanish words can be traced to Arabic root words.
Given all this, why is the Moorish legacy so little discussed in standard history classes? In the US, textbooks often skip from Rome to Columbus, ignoring the 700-plus years of Islamic Spain. This omission fosters misleading myths that medieval Europe was isolated and backward. In truth, Europe borrowed heavily from the science and culture of Al-Andalus. Historian Maria Rosa Menocal remarks that Al-Andalus influenced the rest of Europe in dramatic ways, from liturgical Latin to secular poetry, to remarkable feats in architecture, science, and technology. Yet Americans rarely learn that medieval Spanish scholars were reading Aristotle and Ptolemy thanks to Moorish translations. The term Moor itself often appears only in passing, without explaining that Moors were North African Muslims who made Spain a center of learning. As one scholar put it, a rich African civilization took shape in Spain that was more admired by its neighbors than any other at the time. But this perspective is seldom shared in Eurocentric narratives.
The story of the Black Moors holds lessons for today. Many elements of our modern world have roots in Moorish Spain. In science and mathematics classrooms, students learn algebra, a word from Arabic, al-jabr. The scientific revolution and Renaissance in Europe were built on ideas, optics, philosophy, medicine, transmitted through Al-Andalus. Architecturally, the Moorish influence survives in Spain's iconic monuments and in styles that later spread to the Americas via Spanish colonization. Culturally, the blending of peoples in medieval Spain, Muslims, Jews, and Christians living and learning together, is often cited as a model, albeit imperfect, of coexistence. For a modern American audience, understanding the Moors challenges simple categories. It reminds us that contributions to Western civilization came from many sources, including Africa and the Islamic world. When we marvel at a Spanish cathedral, use the numerals 0 to 9, savor oranges in spring, or even play a guitar tune, we are indirectly indebted to that era of Al-Andalus. As historian Basil Davidson observed, there were no lands at that time more admired than a rich African civilization which took shape in Spain. Reflecting on the Moors tells us our shared history is richer and more interconnected than often taught.
The legacy of the Black Moors lives on in our architecture, language, science, and culture, a legacy that invites us to broaden our view of history and celebrate the many threads that weave together the tapestry of today.